Hello, welcome to Sephra's Pop Culture Channel. I have been meaning to make a video for quite some time now about the whole college admissions scandal thing. As of this recording, it's November 2nd now, or 3rd, 2nd. Um, Felicity Huffman is now out of jail, and so she's through the process, she's done. So, for those of you who don't know what's happening, about a year ago, it was uncovered that a lot of parents were paying this particular guy, I believe Mark Singer, to falsify records and reports and other academic things about their kids so that they could get them into elite colleges of their choice. Now, a lot of people got caught up in a sweep, I guess. The authorities had been watching this specific, I don't know if it's catfishing or Ponzi scheme or whatever label you want to put on it, but this particular illegal process had been on watch for a while, and so I think something like 55 parents were caught up in this net. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is how this sort of thing's been going on forever. I think ever since higher education was invented, there's probably always people trying to beat the system. And this comes down to one of these morality ideas that we all need to wrestle with time and again, whether they come up in our own personal lives or other, seeing other people go through these things, the ethics and morals of getting ahead, and how the rich live in a different world than the rest of us, right? And I mean like filthy rich, not just, a little bit rich, but the mega wealthy people have always lived a different life than the rest of us, no matter where you are in history. And there's been countless sitcoms and movies, comedians, stand-up comedy, and so on, created around the idea of people paying to get their kids into school. Parents buying a wing of a university, so I mean, even Zoolander does this, right? Buys a wing of a university, and then their kids are going to that school. And now, is that considered bribery, or they gave this massive donation and then now their kids go in? I don't know. I don't know where the line is. I don't have to know where that line is because I'm not an educator. I'm not in the system at all. Even my kids aren't in the system. I work at a college, but not on any level that would deal with any of this. So now, when the sweep happened, a bunch of parents were caught up because they had paid someone to falsify records, and the instances of academic dishonesty really range quite widely of what exactly happened in this particular instance where all these people got busted. So that, the high level people involved that everybody knows, with Felicity Huffman and Loughlin or Laughlin, or I don't know how to say her name because she was never on my in my wheelhouse. I never watched Full House. I never watched Fuller House. I don't watch Hallmark Christmas specials because I don't like rom-coms. So I never really like. So I knew she aware. I was aware of who she was. I knew she was Aunt Becky and all that, but I've never sat down and watched her work, nor probably will I ever unless I accidentally have seen something she's in because someone else was in it or I just happened to be watching. Anyways, that's notwithstanding. Felicity Huffman, on the other hand, I knew quite well because I was a Desperate Housewives addict. And I found it interesting that her character on Desperate Housewives, when we first meet her, is actually stealing her kid's Ritalin because she's trying to get by. I haven't read anything about Desperate Housewives since I watched it, and it ended like, what, 10 years ago or something. So I haven't been keeping up with what other people might be comparing to. I made a post on Instagram the other day because I have this Desperate Housewives game called Dirty Laundry, and I keep the box by my bed, and every night when I go to bed, I see Felicity Huffman's face with Desperate Housewives Dirty Laundry on it, and I finally was like, oh yeah, that's interesting because she's in jail right now. At the time, she was. So those two had are the highest profile people that the regular everyday person would know. And then Felicity Huffman's crime was probably considered the lowest kind of one in this whole scenario. And Lori's is considered the highest one in this scenario. And then all the other parents are falling in between. And of course, they're all super rich and super wealthy. And a lot of them are known to a lot of people, depending on what line of work you're in and so on, right? So Felicity Huffman, right away when this happened, her thing was she paid $15,000 to have a proctor falsify her daughter's grades, and then so her grades were falsified so that she was academically eligible to get into the college that she wanted her in. And so that was Felicity's crime. Her husband apparently wasn't complicit in it. So it was just Felicity herself holding the bag. Her children didn't know anything about it till all this happened and were horrified, and understandably so. Then Felicity right away was contrite. She said, "I'm sorry. I realize I did something wrong. Have mercy, blah, blah, blah." So she did her thing. She got put in. She went to court, did the trials, all that. Not trials, but went for a judge. And since she had pled guilty, then so she was sentenced to 14 days in jail. She got a couple days off because she had already, yeah, how the legal system works. Like when you're first arrested, that time counts towards if you get jail time. So she got out in like 11 days. She's out, she's free, she's done. She did her time, it's over. She can now move on with her life. She's done. She got, I think, something like 350 hours of community work and some kind of fine. And then today on my phone, I have a pop up saying, "Oh, she's driving around in a Porsche." It's like, yeah, so she's rich. We know this. She's a rich woman. She has a Porsche. Big deal. Like, so what? Why shouldn't she drive around in a Porsche? What, she's just supposed to, like, sit around in her little Tiny Tykes Fred Flintstone mobile to go, it makes no sense to me why people are like, "Oh, she's got a Porsche." She did her time. She's done. Now, Lori Loughlin, on the other hand, I guess chose to go the opposite way, which is really way too bad for her because her crimes were way bigger. And I believe she paid something like $500,000 for her kids to go through, falsified photos of them being in a rowing club. She didn't do it herself, but the kids' faces were superimposed on faces of real athletes, thereby I guess I should say, in all of this, why it matters. I kind of started off that I got into the specifics, but this matters. It matters. This whole investigation matters because there are people, like me trying to put my kids through school or, you know, of different lives, different quality of lives, who work really hard. There are some people who really badly want to go to college or university and they know they'll never have the money. So they spend their entire high school years working at a bunch of jobs, studying as hard as they can, making sure they keep their grades really high so that they qualify for scholarships, so that they can go on to be doctors or lawyers or rowing champions or whatever their dreams are. And they work hard. They work super hard. Some of them take out student loans. But even before you get to that part, they've sacrificed, their entire teenage years excelling at their crafts and their arts and their skills so that they qualify for the best universities and they keep their marks up. They don't go to parties. They don't do a lot of the stuff that, a normal teenager would do because they're hyper focused on getting in. So then if someone like Lori Loughlin's kid gets in and takes up, the two kids take up two spots on the supposed rowing team that doesn't even exist, then two kids who worked really hard winning rowing championships and spending their sweat and life and dreams rowing and rowing and rowing, and then they can't get into the school so spots are taken, That's the crime. And this is what's horrible. And I read something the other day about one of the other parents. I can't remember who it was, but they're all rich millionaires with no idea of reality whatsoever. And his thing was no one should go to jail, and why? And I'm not talking about the movie star. I'm talking about um, this parent who's also, you know, being fined and stuff. And he literally, he was so tone deaf. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. And I'm sure a lot of you saw this too. And he's so tone deaf that he's like, it wasn't hurting anyone. It didn't hurt minorities, didn't hurt this, didn't hurt that. It's like, yes, it does. This shows you how you do need to go to jail and understand how real people live. You do, mister, have to understand how hard the regular little person works. People like me work so hard just to get little things, just to buy a friggin' bag of groceries. We work so hard because we don't get the millionaire an hour. We don't have a mansion. We don't have a Porsche. We work so hard. And I'm not saying rich people don't work. Most of them do work very hard. Someone like Felicity Huffman, I don't know her actual story, but I know a lot of actors start with nothing. They work their asses off, and they become multimillionaires, and people get jealous. But it's like, no, they worked hard. They did their time. They did, they made it, and good for them, and that's fine. But when you start criticizing that people shouldn't be going to jail or to be punished because there's no real crime here. It is, yes, there is a real crime here. People don't get to go into the educational system because your kids stole the spots. And your kids, in Lori's case, they didn't even want to go to school. They were doing really well on the one girl, Olivia Jade or whoever, apparently was making tons of money on Instagram. She was doing really well. She had a deal with Sephora, all this wonderful stuff. Then, because of her mom wanting her to go to school when she didn't even want to go, paid $500,000 to fake her way onto a rowing team. And this girl, young girl, lost all her. She lost the deal with Sephora. She lost all her a lot of followers. She lost a lot of stuff. In her own career that she had been building at 19 years old, um, her mom destroyed it. And so you got to look at that too. I feel sorry for those kids, even though I'm sure they're rich, spoiled brats or what. I don't know. I don't know any of them, but I did feel incredibly sorry at how all this so much was lost because of this greed and this whole, my kid's better than yours and I'm paying the way in. And that's not right and that's not fair. And so Mr. I forget who it was, that parent that made this interview, just, you need to look at these things. So to go on to Lori, she, of course, uh, we're all watching what's going to happen to her because she chose to plead not guilty. And by pleading not guilty, that means she goes to trial and will have to be judged by a jury of her peers. And she and her husband as well, because they both had pled not guilty to this and they both were complicit in it or whatever. They're looking at something like 40 to 45 years in jail. And then just last week, another round of stuff was slapped on them. Another charge was brought against them. And now there's talk in the news, though I doubt it's going to happen, that there may be charges against the daughters as well. So it's a mess. Now, I can't see Lori going to jail for 40 years. I can't see anyone that rich going to jail for 40 years. I really can't. Um, I can't see her going to jail for 1 year. I can't. I don't. I don't see it. I see her maybe doing 2 or 3 months and maybe 400 hours of community service and a fine. But, sorry, it's my phone going off. But again, the rich get away with all kinds of things. And then people are talking about this case against some other cases. I guess there was a young African American mother who faked her address so her son could go, her little kindergarten kid could go to a better school, and she's been in jail for 10 years or 2 years, or there's some insane thing, which again shows racism and how the poor get treated different than the rich. how women are treated different than men, how black people are treated different than white people, and it's disgusting that young mother went to jail at all. It's ridiculous. So I think that these rich people, yeah, they should do a bit of time and see how it is. Martha Stewart did time. Lots of celebrities have done their time in jail because they did a crime, and you do the time. That's how it works in North America. I'm in Canada, but it's like the States with regard to that sort of thing. You do the crime, you do the time if you're caught. So what's going to happen? I don't know. Lori's pleading innocent. How can you? I don't even understand how she can say that with a straight face that she's pleading not guilty, that she didn't know she was committing a crime. I think even a little kid knew she was committing a crime. You pay $500,000 to bribe someone to send your kids into school. You're photoshopping your kids' faces onto other people's bodies and inventing trophies and awards and stuff. That's called lying. That's called plagiarism. That is illegal. I mean, I've proctored many exams in my time over the last few years, and proctoring exams, we look for plagiarism, we look for cheaters, and you get like barred from school. You get kicked out of school if you're caught cheating. And that's even as much as like just looking at someone's paper. So when you're actively photoshopping your daughter's head onto a rowing person's body, and I know Lori didn't do it herself, and someone was paid to do it, that's lying, cheating, gaslighting, narcissism, illegal, plagiarism, con artistry. Did you not see Catch Me When We Can? You know, um, So yeah, she and her husband are guilty, and they should have pled guilty. Of course, now they're wishing they had pled guilty. Well, I think you still can. I think you still can. I think you can at any point in the process up until the trial starts. You could plead guilty and admit that, yeah, you thought you were going to try and get away with something. But you see, again, they're still trying to get away with something. And we all see it. We all can see that, no, you're guilty. You knew what you were doing. You knew you were lying. You knew you were cheating the system. And you think you're better than the rest of us because you have some money. And you're not. Your kids didn't make the grades. So therefore, they have to earn their way. And like I said, the kids it looked to me like the kids were doing just fine without mommy's help bullying them into going to a university they didn't even want to. These days, I'm not even sure you need to go to university for some careers because we have social media, we have internet, we have self-education and self-determination. And so like Olivia Jade was doing, you don't even need, if that, I'm sure that was her name. She didn't even need an education. She already had the smarts because she came from a life of privilege already, had the money to set up stuff and do her thing, and she was getting insane contracts and living her own life and living a good life. And now it all got crashed down. I'm sure she'll be fine. She'll land on her feet as the rich always do. Now, another thought I was having the other night, I've had all along actually, is when they do these fines, where does that money go? Because in a line of thinking of what with that that male parent saying his stuff like, "Oh, we didn't hurt anyone," but and no one should go to jail, and so maybe on one facet, because it does cost a lot of money to send someone to jail, maybe we should think of it in a different way. Maybe someone like Felicity or Lori should maybe, instead of going to jail, calculate what their jail time would have been, what it cost to the taxpayers, and then have them pay that amount of money into a scholarship fund so that underprivileged children could go to school. Or even the fines, send them a fine that, every year for the next 10 years or some whatever scale you can come up with, they have to buy a scholarship for someone who can't afford to go to school. To me, that would make more sense. And maybe that's what the community service work is about. I don't know. But instead of, wasting government money and government space for these white collar crimes, hit them where it counts in their Porsches and give that Porsche to an underprivileged kid, give it to me. No, but I think them having to pay into a scholarship program for people or student loans, pay off someone's student loan that year, help the kids in the school that you were trying to screw over, you know? Why don't you just buy everyone a car or pay off some of these loans for the other kids and make sure in the future that, you can help other children take that $15,000 and send it to a person who really needs it instead of pretending you gave it to a charity. To me, that's what was the most sickening part of this whole shebang. 'Cause I know there's always been, people getting ahead when they're rich. We all know that. Unless you just fell off the turnip truck, we all know the rich get what they want whenever they want it. So yeah, I could see money passing hands to, hey, just put my kid in, right? But if it means taking someone out, then these people should be paying for that. That's what I think. I think, that Felicity Huffman, because the $15,000 or the or the half a million, the $450,000, or all the other amounts, they all got receipts that they had donated this money to charity. And that's where I get sick. Because now there's what, millions, I haven't looked at the numbers, but millions of dollars theoretically donated to charity, but actually went to the scamming man, right? To Singer. He got all the money, not any of these charities that they made fake receipts for. And to me, that's disgusting. And maybe one of the uh, fines should be, now you really do have to give a charity that money or put it into a scholarship program so that all these people that have lost all these spaces all these years from all these crooks can now go to school. These underprivileged kids that didn't get in, kids who worked so hard to make the scholarship or to make the honor level, but then there weren't enough spaces that year in the school of their choice, so they didn't get to go because entitled rich people bought spots instead, because there are only so many spots, there are only so many seats in a classroom, and all, you know there is. And so what happened with that rowing team? That's what I want to know. Is so they pretended their kids were on this rowing team, so now is the rowing team short because there were just invisible people on that team on the scholarship plan? I don't know. It's all confusing. Anyways, I just had to prattle on about that because it has kind of been bugging me since it all started. It really has, and on so many levels, as you can see. And I'm curious, so curious to see what's going to happen to Lori Loughlin, how do you say her name, Aunt Becky, and what's going to happen. I know she'll come out fine on the other side. Her career is going to be fine. Her husband's career is going to be fine because rich people always land on their feet. But it'll be interesting to see her scared for a while. It'll be interesting to see if she will eventually admit she's guilty and that she knew what she was doing all along because she did. So even my phone agrees. So, yeah, what do you think? What do you think about this whole scandal? Do you think that it even shouldn't have been a scandal? Do you think they should have just looked the other way when this all went down? Anyways, let me know in the comments. And yeah, we'll see what happens next. Bye.